Okay, so now we will move on to the next concept. So we started off with techniques of material control, right? So we did EOQ, we did stock levels. Another important technique of material control is determining the raw material turnover ratios. Okay, so by figuring out what is your raw material turnover ratio, you can determine if your material is fast moving or slow moving. Okay, so if you know that your material is slow moving, it means it is brought into the warehouse, it is sitting in the warehouse. The frequency of it coming into the warehouse and going in for production is very, very less. Okay, which means it is slow moving, which means you're simply buying the material and stacking it there. So you'll have to take adequate measures for slow moving materials. But fast moving materials, if a material is fast moving, no problem. It comes to the warehouse, it is sent in for production. So by calculating your raw material turnover ratio, you can determine if your material is fast moving or slow moving. So how do you calculate this raw material turnover ratio? So let's go to the concept part, which is page number 13. Page number 13. So see here, raw material turnover ratio. How do you calculate your raw material turnover ratio? So raw material turnover ratio is calculated as cost of raw materials consumed by average stock of raw materials. So obviously here in the numerator I have raw materials consumed, and in the denominator I have average stock of raw materials. Now in the numerator, if I have raw material consumed, if my raw material turnover ratio is a bigger number, what would that mean? It would mean that my numerator is bigger than my denominator, which means that my consumption of material is more than my stacking of material, which means the material will be fast moving. Which means that higher the raw material turnover ratio, the faster moving the material will be. Did you all understand? So if the numerator is bigger, it means your raw material turnover ratio will be bigger, which means that your material will be fast moving. Okay, so now how do you calculate raw material turnover ratio? So before that, I want you to write here, higher the raw material turnover ratio, or wait, no need to write, it's already here. It's there, don't write. So now how to calculate the raw material turnover ratio? So the numerator part, the raw material consumed. How do you calculate raw material consumed? Opening stock plus purchases minus closing stock in value. Okay, so if they have given you opening stock, then and if opening stock is valued as per the previous period's cost, then it is always better to take value. Okay, but if opening stock and purchases and closing stock is valued at the same price, then you can take units, because ultimately everything will get cancelled off. Okay, but always stick to value, it is better. Okay, so cost of raw materials consumed is opening stock plus purchases minus closing stock. How do you calculate average stock of raw materials? Average stock of raw materials is half of opening stock plus closing stock. Please remove this 365. I don't know why it has come here. 365 is not there. Please remove it. It is half of opening plus closing stock. Nothing but opening plus closing by 2. That's all. Yes. Another way to calculate raw material turnover ratio, average stock of raw materials, another way could be half of maximum plus minimum level. So sometimes they may give you maximum level, minimum level. So you will get your average level, which is nothing but your average stock of raw materials. Okay, so in the problem they may give you maximum, minimum, or they may give you opening stock, closing stock. So whatever they have given, use it to calculate your average stock of raw materials. So this is one, your raw material turnover ratio. Now the next thing is number of days for which inventory was held. Okay, so this helps us in calculating for how many days was that inventory sitting in our warehouse. So how do you calculate this? The formula is 365 by material turnover ratio. So you would have calculated your raw material turnover ratio. Whatever you get, 365 by raw material turnover ratio gives you your number of days for which inventory was held. Now you tell me, if the number of days for which inventory was held was bigger, a bigger number. So let's say that there are two materials, A and B. Okay, A was held for 115 days, B was held for 80 days. Between A and B, which is fast moving? B. Because the lesser number of days raw material was held in inventory, the faster moving the material is. So here there is an inverse relationship, correct? Unlike material turnover ratio. So what do we deduce from this? We deduce that higher material turnover ratio and lesser inventory stock holding period would mean that my material is fast moving, and lower material turnover ratio and higher inventory stock holding period would mean that my material is slow moving. Guys, is it okay? So sometimes they may give you questions on raw material. Guys, shall we move on? Okay, so let's move on to the concepts. So again, there are other methods of inventory control. So apart from this, whatever we've studied, we also have ABC and we have JIT. Okay, that is more important from the theoretical point of view. So they may give you a theory question like write short notes on ABC or JIT. So I've given that as part of the question bank, so you can run through it whenever you are studying. Okay, so now we will move on to a very important concept, which is the concept of landed cost of materials. We have come across this term when? Yesterday? Yes, when we were doing the cost sheet, I told you that we add certain costs which are related to my direct material with direct material as part of prime cost. Remember, so I told you that when we are going to do landed cost of materials, I'm going to remind you, so I'm reminding you now. Okay, so what is this landed cost of materials? So now landed cost of materials is nothing but the cost which is incurred in bringing the material to its present condition and state. So when you are recording your purchases of material, okay, you just don't record the purchase price that you're paying to your vendor, but also certain other costs which are incurred in bringing that material to the warehouse. Okay, so when you add all these costs together, it is called as landed costs of materials. So please write down landed costs of materials includes all costs incurred in bringing inventory to its present state and condition. To its present state and condition. Okay, so it is this landed cost of materials that you're going to use in your stores ledger. So the next concept that we're going to be doing is the concept of stores ledger, how to draw up a stores ledger. So in the stores ledger, when you are recording a purchase, you will be recording the purchase based on this landed cost of materials. Okay, so for that, we need to understand what is the meaning of landed cost of materials. Only then we can draw up the stores ledger. Otherwise, we cannot draw up the stores ledger. So what is this landed cost of materials? So along with the purchase value, that is whatever you're paying to the vendor. Now you've purchased your material from your supplier. You have to pay him per unit. Apart from that, what else is added to this? So let's see. Trade discount. Yesterday we had discussed trade discount also. So what do? It is deducted. So you will adjust this with your purchase value. How? By deducting it. So trade discount yesterday we saw was given because the supplier wants you to purchase in bulk. But what do we do with cash discount? Ignored. We ignore it. We keep it outside the purview of costing. Correct? Because that is for prompt payment. So if cash discount is given, ignore it. If trade discount is given, deduct it. Next. Any subsidy, grant or incentive which we may have obtained, what do we do with it? Deduct. So it is adjusted with the purchase value by deducting it from the purchase value. GST. Now what do you do with GST? Now GST, if input credit is available, so you're going to get that back, right? So you ignore it. Okay, but suppose input credit is not available, then that is extra cost to you. You cannot minus the credit on the purchases made by you, correct? So if input credit is not available, then what do you do? Then you add it, because that is extra cost to you, correct? So I've written it here, ignored if credit is given. If not, it is added. Okay, so if the question is silent about input credit, given or not given, then usually what do we assume? We assume that it is given. It is given. Not given, they will tell in the problem. Then you have to add it. Okay. But if the question is silent, simply say that, write a note to that effect saying that since nothing has been specified, it is assumed that GST input credit is available. Hence, this is not considered in calculation of landed cost of materials. Guys, is it okay? Everybody, but usually with respect to GST, they will tell you what needs to be done, and in the problem they will specify that input credit is not available, so they will make you add it to the cost of purchase. Guys, is it okay? Very simple. Next, customs duty. Customs duty is paid on imports and exports, so customs duty will always be added. Okay. Next, demurrage, detention charges, fines and penalties. Now these are all abnormal in nature, correct? Fines and penalties, you never think that I'm going to get fined. Today when you leave the center in the evening and if you get caught by the mama outside, are you go and say you have to pay him a bribe of whatever, correct? So will you anticipate that today this is going to happen? No, right? So fines and penalties, all of these detention charges, demurrage. So demurrage is usually paid on, ships who have unloaded their material and not moved it from the docking yard. Okay, so all these expenses are abnormal in nature. Okay, so what do we do with abnormal expenses? Costing P&L. So they are never added to the cost of purchases. If they are added, you have to remove them and transfer to costing P&L account. So this should be charged to costing P&L account. They are all abnormal in nature. Insurance, freight, commission, brokerage, all of this will be added. Correct? Any sort of transit insurance that you may have taken, freight that you are paying. Yesterday, if you remember, we added freight inwards to cost of purchase. Correct? Any sort of commission or brokerage to bring in the material, all of this will be added. It is very much part of the landed cost of materials. And cost of containers. What do you do with containers? Now, certain materials have to be transported only in containers. You cannot transport them otherwise. So what do you do with these containers? Do you add the cost or do you not add the cost? So it depends. If the containers are non-returnable, so the material comes with the container itself, so the container need not be returned, then it is very much part of the cost of material. So in that case, you will add it. Okay. But if the container is returnable, okay, if the container is returnable, then what do you do? So the container is coming with the material. Once you remove the material, the container has to be sent back. So something like your Coke bottles, correct? So you buy the glass bottle. So you buy the glass bottle and then you have to return the glass bottle, right? You don't take it away. Sometimes the shopkeeper charges you extra also for that bottle because he's not sure if he will get the bottle back or not, correct? But if you see a shampoo bottle, that is a non-returnable container. It's not that you finish the shampoo and then you give the container away, correct? So that is the difference between returnable and non-returnable container. So if it's a returnable container and if the supplier has not charged anything from you, then you will not add that particular cost. But suppose the supplier has charged you some money. Okay, say the supplier says you are using my container, I am not sure if you will return it, so you pay me 10 rupees per container. Okay, when you return the container, I will give you 6 rupees back, which means for using the container you are paying 4 rupees. because you paid 10, you're going to get 6 refund once you return the container. In that case, what do? You add 10 rupees and then you minus 6 rupees when you get the refund. So for presentation's sake, we will add 10 and minus 6. Don't put 4 directly. Okay, so though the net effect is 4 rupees only, but for presentation sake, always keep this in mind. We'll add 10 and then we will minus 6. Guys, is it okay? Everybody? So can you make a note of that actually here? For example, if container costs 10 rupees and rupees 6 is refunded on return of container, cost will be 10 rupees minus 6 rupees, which is 4 rupees. 10 rupees minus 6 rupees, which is 4 rupees. So guys, why are we calculating this landed cost of materials? Because if we don't have landed cost of materials, we cannot draw up a stores ledger. This is all the initial preparation for our stores ledger. Okay, so now that we have our landed cost of materials, I know what cost I have to charge to the stores ledger. But this is in total. I need per unit. Correct? So now the next thing is to calculate my total number of units. Okay, only then I will take landed cost divided by the total number of units and I will get my cost per unit. That cost per unit is called as stock rate, which I will be charging in my stores ledger. Correct? So now landed cost I have got. Now the question is how to calculate those number of units. So those number of units are called as effective quantity. Effective quantity purchased. Okay, so the number of units are called as effective quantity purchased. So how do you calculate this effective quantity purchased? Effective quantity purchased is calculated as quantity purchased minus breakage minus provision for further losses. So in transit, from the time I have ordered till the time I have received, if there are any losses, any breakage, all that I have to remove, and whatever is left is called as my effective quantity purchase. So my total landed cost, which I have determined in the previous section, will be divided by this effective quantity purchased to get my stock rate or material price per unit, which is what you will be using in your stores ledger. So you know, no, stores ledger has 3 parts. You have receipts, you have issues, you have balances. In the receipts column, you put quantity, rate and amount. That rate that you put there is this rate, stock rate. That is called as stock rate. That is what we have computed here. Usually that is given to us in the problem. Correct? In the problem they give us that rate. But suppose they don't give us that rate, then we have to compute it like this. Guys, is it okay? So why are we doing this landed cost and effective quantity purchase? To get that stock rate that we are going to charge in the stores ledger. Is it okay? So landed cost we calculated, effective quantity we calculated, landed cost by effective quantity purchase gives me my stock rate. So now the format to calculate landed cost of materials, how does the format look? You have purchase price minus your trade discount gives you your net purchase price. If you are adding GST, that is if credit is not available, then you add your GST. What do you get? Total invoice price. Now to this total invoice price, you add all your other expenses like, you know, your brokerage, commission, freight or cost of containers. You adjust all of that and then you get your landed cost of materials. Then landed cost of materials is part 1. Then part 2, what do you need to do? Effective quantity purchase. So if they have given you any losses or any breakage, you adjust all of that. You will get your effective quantity purchased. Landed cost divided by effective quantity purchased will give you your stock rate or the cost per unit of material purchased. Is it okay? Everyone? Sure. So we will be working out a problem on this. Okay. But before that, this is when we are talking about one material. Okay. But let's say the organization is buying many materials from one vendor, then what do? Then you will have to, and the invoice is just one. Then what do? Then you have to split the cost between various materials. Okay. So when many materials are purchased from a single vendor, costs associated with purchase have to be distributed across materials, because for each material you will have your stores ledger. So for each material you need to calculate stock rate separately. So for each ledger we need to know what was the landed cost separately. So you will have to split your material cost accordingly. So if we are purchasing many materials from one vendor, then that vendor will give us one invoice total. Say we are purchasing A, B and C, 3 materials from one single person. He will give us one invoice totaling to say 1 lakh rupees. Now that 1 lakh rupees has to be split between A, B and C. So we need to figure out how to split that 1 lakh rupees between A, B and C. So certain things are very easy to split. What are those certain things? GST can be easily split. GST can be easily split in the ratio of your purchase value. Correct? That we can easily split. So we know how many units we have purchased for ABC. Correct? We know what the unit price was for ABC. So we can easily split that. GST can be split in the ratio of purchase value. That is simple. Freight. Freight can also be easily split. How? Freight is usually paid on the quantity which is transported. So depending on the quantity of A, B and C that I've purchased, I will be easily able to split my freight. Correct? When it comes to other expenses other than these, then we will have to read the problem in order to see what extra they have given, which is a clue to us, which will tell us how to split these expenses. So everything is not given to you. You will have to figure out certain things when you are looking at the problem. So now the problem that we are going to solve is based on the splitting only. Okay, so we would have purchased many things from one single vendor, and now we have to calculate the stock rate. So how do we calculate the stock rate? We first need landed cost, then we will calculate effective quantity, then we will calculate stock rate by dividing landed cost by. Guys, shall we move on? So now we will move on to the stores ledger. Okay, so stores ledger, you know how to draw this up, right? The stores ledger consists of 3 parts. The receipts, you have the receipts, you have the issues, and you have the balance. Correct? Under receipts we have quantity, rate and amount. Under issues also we have quantity, rate and amount, and in balance also we have quantity, rate and amount. So anything that comes into the stores will be recorded under receipts. Anything that goes out from the stores will be recorded under issues, and whatever is left will be recorded under balance. Correct? So now for us, the 3 important methods of pricing issues and valuation of closing stock involve FIFO, LIFO and weighted average. Okay, so FIFO, as the name suggests, first in, first out. So the rule here is whatever has come in first should be issued first. Okay, under LIFO, what is the rule? Whatever has come in last should be issued first. LIFO stands for last in, first out. And weighted average believes that there is no point in having different rates for different lots of materials. To make it easier, let's have one single rate. So all your value of material and quantity is averaged to get something called as the weighted average rate, at which all your issues will be priced. So we will be solving problems on FIFO and on weighted average. Okay, so we have the next problem in the book is basically based on FIFO and weighted average. But before we move on to the problem, there are certain adjustments that we need to understand, okay, when it comes to drawing up the stores ledger. So if it's a purchase, I know you will easily put the purchase in the receipts column. If it is an issue, I know you will put it under the issue column, and balance you can easily calculate. But what if it is not a purchase or an issue? It is something else. Then what do you do? So come down, important notes or points. to be kept in mind while drawing up the stores ledger. So let's read it one by one. For recording purchases or receipts of raw materials in the stores ledger, always use landed cost of material. This I've been harping on from the time we started landed cost of materials. So why are we calculating landed cost of materials? So that we can use it in our stores ledger. Otherwise it has no other use. Correct? So if we are using it in our stores ledger for recording receipts, for issues also we are going to use the same price. Correct? Now usually when you have to draw up the stores ledger, nobody asks you to calculate the landed cost of material. It is given to you in the problem. Right? But suppose they ask you by chance, then you know how to calculate it. Okay. So this is the first point. Second point, job to job transfer, there will be no entry in the stores ledger. Obviously. Why? Because stores ledger shows the scenario of the stores. Material is coming into the stores, you make an entry. Material is going outside the stores, you make an entry. When two jobs are interchanging material, does the stores come into the picture? No, the stores is not coming into the picture. That is between the two jobs. The stores would have already issued the material to job 1. That time the stores would have made an entry. Now what job 1 is doing with it, the stores has nothing to do with it. So if job 1 has used 50 kgs of material out of the 100 kgs and gives the remaining 50 to another job, there will be no entry in the stores, because ultimately when 100 kgs was issued, the stores had already recorded 100 kgs in the stores ledger. Correct? So when a job to job transfer is happening, the stores will not record an entry. Maybe to make things more methodical and organized, the stores may mention it below that this job transferred this job so many kgs of material. That's it. Just to keep a track of what is happening. But there will be no entry per se in the stores ledger. Okay. Next, return to the supplier. Now yesterday, if you remember, we had discussed two types of returns. Correct? One was when the material was returned at the gate. Now that is not considered as a purchase return at all. Why? Because there was no purchase. So when there is no purchase, there won't be a purchase return. Correct? But the other kind of purchase return was when we have done a GRN. So the minute we do a GRN, it means we have purchased. So we will make an entry in a stores ledger saying we have purchased. So quantity, rate, amount will come under receipts column. Now I realize, no, this is not the quantity of material that I wanted to purchase. So I'm returning it to my supplier. So I will return it to my supplier. Now returning to the supplier, that quantity, where will you mention it? Under which part of the stores ledger? Obviously under issues. So issues actually means it is issued to the production department where production is being carried on. But we have to show these entries also. So anything that comes will be recorded under receipts. Anything that goes, wherever it goes, will be recorded under issues. So now that I'm returning my material to the supplier, it will be recorded under issues. So quantity will come there. Now the question is, at what rate? At what rate will you record it? So it will be recorded under issue column. This is clear. At the same rate at which it was purchased. So from whichever lot you are returning the material back to the supplier, you will record it under the issue column at the same rate at which it was purchased. Okay. Next. Now let's say the supplier gives you a replacement. You return this material. So now the supplier has to give you a replacement for this material. So the supplier has given you a replacement. Now where will you record it? It's a replacement. So it's coming into the stores. So you will record it under the receipts column. But at what rate will you record it? At the same rate at which you earlier purchased it. Okay. So replacement from vendor or supplier recorded in the receipts column like a fresh purchase at the same rate at which it was initially purchased, because this replacement is in lieu of that particular material which was returned. So it will be recorded at the same rate. Guys, is it okay? At which it was initially purchased. So the return is also recorded at that rate and the replacement is also recorded at that rate itself. What is that rate? The rate at which it was initially purchased. Guys, okay? Next, return from production to stores. Now the stores had issued material to the production department. Okay? Now production department returns it back saying, I don't want it. Now what will you do with it? So the production department has returned the material. It has come back into the stores. So first point, tell me, where will you record it? Issues or receipts? Receipts, because material has come back into the stores. So you will record it under receipts. At what rate? At the same rate at which it was issued. Correct? So that is also clear. So record it as a receipt entry at the same rate at which it was issued. Now there is one more problem here. Okay, let's say we are following FIFO method. Okay, we are following FIFO method. So say I have 10 kgs at 10 rupees. I have 5 kgs at 9 rupees. Okay, and let's say I have 3 kgs at 2 rupees. So 6 rupees. Okay, this is in my balance column. This is in my balance column. We are following FIFO. Now this production department has returned 5 kgs of material, and the rate at which it returned was say 2 rupees. So 10 rupees worth material has been returned to me. So what did you tell me? That you will record it under receipt column. You will record it at 2 rupees because this was the same rate at which it was issued. You have shown the balance also. But now in this balance column, where will you place it? Now you are following FIFO. Where will you place it? Will you place it here or will you place it here? Top or bottom? So thumb rule. When the production department is sending the material back, your duty is to remove it as fast as possible. Whichever method you're following, it doesn't matter. That should go first. So the next issue will be this material. Because this was issued first only. It's come back. So now this should be removed from your stores. Okay. So now where will you place it in FIFO? First. You will place it here on top. Because then the next issue will be made from this lot. But suppose we are following LIFO now, not FIFO. Last. So always remember thumb rule. This material should get out first. Because it was issued first. Correct? So you will place it here. So that it can be removed first. Thumb rule. So see here. Placement of such units to be issued. Immediately. Immediately. So if we are following FIFO, first balance under balance column. If we are following LIFO, last balance under balance column. Guys, did you all understand? So thumb rule is, because this was returned, which means this was already issued before, but now the production department has returned it, which means now my duty is to get rid of that material ASAP. So that I have to get rid of it. If I'm following FIFO, it will come in the first balance. If I'm following LIFO, it will come in the last balance. Guys, okay? Everybody? Okay. Now the last one. Very, very important one. Treatment of shortage. Treatment of shortage. So, when we are treating shortage, okay, shortage will be treated based on either we are following FIFO or LIFO. So, the value of that shortage will be based on whichever method we are following. Okay, and shortage can be treated in two ways. Okay, either you treat shortage as FOH or you treat shortage by inflating cost. If you remember, this method we already know. Yesterday we did Apple's method. Correct? So shortage could be normal. Shortage could be abnormal. Correct? If shortage is normal, then it could be treated as FOH or it could be treated by inflating cost. If it is abnormal, there is no treatment. Abnormal will be valued like good units and transferred to costing P&L account. Okay. Now this we did yesterday. Inflating cost. Same thing. 10 kgs of, or 10 apples came. In that one was rotten. 2 were abnormally rotten. So what did we do? That 100 rupees was borne by the 7 good apples and the 2 abnormally rotten apples. So that is either 7 plus 2 or 10 minus 1. So same thing here also. It's the same thing. There we are looking at apples. Here we are looking at raw material. Okay. So this we know. Okay. But if it is to be treated as FOH, we don't know that yet. Okay. So don't worry. We will understand this with the help of a sum. which I have given in the book. Okay, how to treat shortage. So in that sum, we will treat shortage. First, we will assume shortage is normal. Okay, we will treat it as FOH and we will treat it by inflating. Okay, then we will assume shortage is abnormal and we will show how it goes to costing P&L account. And I will also give you journal entries for the same so that you can link it to your cost accounting systems, which is integrated and non-integrated accounts. So everything will be complete here only. Is it okay? Shall we move on? So now that we have finished the stores ledger part of it, we have two important problems to look at. One is where we will be drawing up the stores ledger under expected, unavoidable, non-controllable. So it is either treated as regular cost by inflating the price of direct materials, or please add, or treated as FOH, or treated as FOH. By inflating the cost, we know. Yes or no? Yesterday we saw Apple's example that 10 rupees became 11.11. Same thing. Same thing. Instead of apples, it will be a raw material. That's all. Correct? So normal loss will be treated either by inflating the rate, material rate, or you can also treat it as factory overheads. That treating it as factory overheads we have not yet done. Correct? But it's very simple. If you're treating it as factory overheads, it simply means that normal loss is also going to bear cost. And since it's bearing cost, it will go to factory overhead account. That's all. That's what it means. So simply in our apples example, 100 rupees was the cost of my 10 apples, right? So it was divided as 7 good apples, 1 normal loss, 2 abnormal loss. So I know that each apple costs 10 rupees. So in this case, 70 rupees will go to cost sheet. Here you are not inflating the cost here. 10 rupees remains 10 rupees. For 1 apple cost is 10 rupees. That will be treated as FOH. Correct? Because you're not inflating. Here normal loss also has to bear cost. When you are inflating the cost, that time normal loss does not bear the cost. And 2 abnormal apples will be 2 into 20, which will go to costing P&L account. So treating it as FOH is very, very easy. There is no question of inflating the cost. It is the inflating of cost which becomes confusing to certain students. Okay, but that you should not be confused with. It simply means that normal loss is not going to bear the cost. So who will bear the cost? The remaining units, which is abnormal loss units and good units that we saw yesterday. So if there is a normal loss, then it can either be treated by inflating the wage rate or the material rate, or it could be treated by charging it to FOH. And if there is an abnormal loss, then life is very simple. The minute abnormal comes into the picture, we know costing P&L. Okay, so this is beyond expectations, above normal. This is treated by charging off to costing P&L account. So now in this case 6, we will charge this shortage as normal and treat it in both ways.